Welcome to the Summit of Qigong Masters. This is your host, Lama Tuntrapa, and today I am thrilled to introduce, or perhaps reintroduce to you, Dr. Effie Chow. She really doesn't need introduction because she is one of the most experienced and well-known Qigong Masters in North America, the founder of the World Qigong Federation, and the creator of the World Congress on Qigong. Welcome to our summit, and I want to jump right into some questions that we started discussing in private, and that is, what is abundance? How do you understand abundance, and how would you share your understanding or definition of abundance with us?
Greetings, Lama, and I send greetings to all your viewers and listeners and wish a very good day for everybody.
Thank you.
Regarding your question about abundance, it can be defined in many different ways. One, what many people think, first of all, is the money aspect, abundance in wealth and money. There are other abundances, such as psychological, psychosocial, and spiritual abundance. And then the abundance of having a collective goodness in your life, which of course you create. Okay, it is given to us, but it is up to us to choose whether we choose the good or choose the bad. It is all existing in the universe. And so therefore I like to really say the wealth abundance is no good if you don't have the psychosocial, spiritual, and emotional abundance. Just that in general puts it into a framework that we're not talking about money only.
When we're talking about abundance, most people think about it in terms of abundance of wealth, or the energy of money, as we put it in our circles of those who relate to money on energetic terms. But of course,
that's important too, of course. I'm not saying it's not important at all, but as far as priority, that the other abundance is a higher priority.
And of course, we can also talk about abundance in terms of the quality of our relationships, both the quality of our relationship with ourselves, with the world that we live in, with people who are important to us, and with our community. So we can have an abundant life, for example, as a result of living the lifestyle that provides us the plenty. Even though we may not possess a lot of possessions, we may still experience the plenitude or abundance.
If you don't mind, I'd like to expand that a little bit more into the fact that daily we do have abundance if we're open and acknowledging it. Even as simple as like you have soup and you have food on the table. Being grateful for that makes it an abundance. And the fact that the soup is hot, not cold, when it should be hot. And if we're grateful for every little thing like this, it's amazing how it draws more to you on the positive factor, so that your attitude and your appreciation for the positive intention or the positive affirmation of things that you have is really important. And so if you don't appreciate it, then the abundance fade away because you don't recognize what is good for you. Does that make sense at all?
You're talking about the power of gratitude. And
Absolutely.
Probably most of our viewers are quite familiar with the concept or the idea how much gratitude improves the quality of life. Because we can have all kinds of wonderful things in our lives. If we don't appreciate them, there won't be much benefit of that.
Or that gratitude is quickly resolved by saying thank you. And people think just because you said thank you, that is gratitude. That's very superficial gratitude to me. And it's remembering a a favor that someone did for you years ago, and many years ago, and that you still appreciate it now, and that when you see that person, that you are full of gratitude for what happened many years ago. And so, but today people's gratitude is so superficial and so short-lived. For example, as in Qigong, the life force is from, let me use the word God, and we should be forever thankful that we have this life force, because that's where our power comes in. Our power to help people transform, or to help them with physical problems, or psychosocial, spiritual problems, etc. And so we should every day be thankful that we are the catalyst for this healing energy. I know many Qigong masters don't believe in them. They are the catalyst of something greater coming through them. And many Qigong masters will say, well, yes, I can heal you. And my word to people is that if a Qigong master says, I can heal you, then turn around and run the other way. Because that's a lot of the ego talking there. And so therefore we should every day be grateful for that greater capacity that is there for all of us. And then regarding being thankful for things that people have helped you with, or done for you, and done favors for you, that you should remember every time you meet them that gratefulness should be the forefront upon your meeting. And therefore, either refer to what the person has done for you, bring it up to the present, and also, if we acknowledge the little things that happens to us and is grateful for it, not only wait for big things like life-saving situations, even somebody who's thoughtful of you, if you have, a cold or something, and a friend or a family member think about you and bring a bowl of soup over to you, you should remember that with gratitude, not just, hey, thanks a lot, And if you give depth to every little thing and give credence to every little thing, then your life is abundant. But if I give something to someone, whether it's a huge spot of my time to help them through some very difficult times, or just help them with something little, I don't expect gratitude back. If I do get some gratitude, not just by voice or verbally say thank you, but some action that they take, because it takes much more thought and time for somebody to go and do something and do it back to you. But it's not expecting things to go back to me, but I hope that person will turn around and, you say, pay it forward, and go ahead and do something for other people, and don't expect it back from that person. And so I don't expect it back to me, but it would be great. I would be happy. And when they say thank you, I say, well, that's really great, and I hope you'll do the same for other people. That you think about helping some other people, and that will be your thanks to me.
Exactly. Most spiritual people who pursue energy arts tend to operate. It is often that's their standard operating procedure already, that they give a lot and often don't receive much back. From interviewing and surveying hundreds of Qigong practitioners, I see that not very many of them actually thrive. Many still struggle to survive, in a sense, because they're giving a lot and not receiving much back.
But when you say struggle or receiving much back, what do you mean by that, Lama?
What I mean by that is that I often see people who practice various healing arts, or Qigong in particular, and they give a lot in terms of knowledge, in terms of energy, in terms of helping people with healing or other things. And often they don't receive reciprocation simply because there was no established agreement. So that as a result, they spend a fair amount of their energy and time and life and often don't receive much back in the sense that would provide them more support for their life so that they thrive.
Well, what I'm gathering is that from what you're saying is that you expect it back from that person that you've given it to.
That's not my expectation I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, you see, what I'm saying is that I don't expect anything back from the person that I've helped. And in my expression, I say that it would be nice if you will help other people as you felt that you have been helped. Now, if you expect back or there's some negotiation and etc., then it puts it into a very Western kind of business-like thing. And I think we have to manage Qigong from a proper business standpoint and that there are some understanding, but I give 60% of my time away. And I don't expect something back from that which I give. But the people that come to me and say, I want an appointment, and I read you on the website, and etc. And they come, and we say, okay, the appointment is, such and such, and it costs such and such. And then there's an agreement there. And so that's a business. So I don't expect back from them because that's a business agreement. And even the people that I give, or 60% that I give away, I don't expect back from them. As I said, I hope that they would help others. And what it is that I am receiving, always appreciative of the energy that is given to me by God, so that I don't need to have some mortal person to come back and say, oh, yeah, thank you very much. Of course it's nice, And the documents I asked them to write is not to appease my ego that I had helped them, but is to keep documentation the fact that, for example, frozen shoulder for 12 years, cannot move up, past 45-degree angle, and very painful. And in 12 minutes, I've got this person raising up their arms. They said, I can't do this. And the person does it and don't even realize it. And I said, do what? I said, you're doing it. And she goes, oh my God, oh, wow, and for the moment, the joy there is not they are feeding back to me, but have that joyous within yourself. And also write it down, document it, because for me, documentation seals in the healing. It helps the person maintain that healing more, because in writing down the positive that happens to you, it accelerates the healing, and they maintain it for a longer time. Because when you write something original, you cannot be thinking and reading other things. That's the only thing that you do when you are doing any original work, and you have to think about the process. And in this case, writing or creating something new, that it is called upon your inner heart to develop this. You cannot think of anything. So that's why when you write down the testimonials that you have gained this, etc., then it makes it so that it's more permanent. Okay? I said a frozen shoulder, 12 minutes and it's gone. 12 and a half years. You've done everything, taken medicine, they've even had surgery and so forth, and even a metal bulb up here in the shoulder, but we get them total, and they said, no, you will never be able to raise it up here. And the other is ringing the ears, or hearing, or eyesight. And recently in Honolulu, we had a gentleman, 50 years ringing the ears he had. And in 10 minutes, it was gone. That was 2 months ago, and it's still gone. And I taught him how to use Chao Qigong to prevent it. And I talked to him last night, and he says, Yeah, well, start to come back. And then I do what you taught me, that I relax my neck and I do what you told me, and it's gone, and it'll stay away. And when I'm stressed out, then I know it comes back. And that's when people tighten up. And that's for everything, okay? The fellow had macular degeneration for 4 years, 3.5 to 4 years. Everything was a blob to him. His wife's face was a blur, and he couldn't see anything except the stage. He says, "There's a stage there." He couldn't see any of the students in there. And so I worked with him, showed him what to do, and within 12 minutes, he says, "I can see my wife's face." And he could see the people in the audience, not just a blur. And he turned around, looked at the stage. He says, "Oh my gosh, there's two huge pots of poinsettia at the end of the banner. I know there's words on the banner, but I still can't see it yet." But at first, he couldn't even see the banner. He couldn't even see the pots there. So this is within 10 minutes. We're talking about something, really spectacular here with Qigong. But when they turn around and talk to other people, I'm not saying these cases, but I've had many cases of what I just gave you examples of: frozen children, hearing and loss, and ringing the ear, and eyesight loss, and all that. And aside from paralysis and all that, that in one session I can get a quadriplegic moving. They've been quadriplegic for about 6.5 years, okay? And so they turn around and will say, "Oh yes, Chao Qigong helped me. I could move again." But most people, when they think quadriplegic, they'll take them months and years to get moving to the point that they can get up and walk and everything. And they don't say the time element. So that's in a bit ingratitude. And that's then creates lack of abundance. You don't appreciate the power of God to do that. And therefore, it interferes with the abundance that you would get. And the people say, "Oh yeah, my hearing got better." And so I said, "Marvin, you've got to say in 12 minutes that your hearing got better, or 10 minutes, or, etc. 50 years. Then people can realize the exceptional things that can happen in this life. And life is a miracle. But we've made it
Exactly.
non-miracle, right?
Most people experience in their lives that they don't experience a lot of miracles every day. And then they don't appreciate things that are of less than miraculous level. And therefore,
But Lama, the fact that you wake up, that's a miracle.
I
See,
know.
life is a miracle. The fact that you can see, and the fact that you have tubulars in your lung, that when you straighten it out, it covers a tennis court. Your lung tubules, if you straighten it out. And you should read God's Greatest Miracle. I think that book is a miracle. And it tells you what each of the organs, how expansive it is. So we have stopped marveling at ourselves as a creation of miracle. That's what I want to bring back. And this is what all my classes, that people begin to appreciate themselves more. And therefore, when they appreciate themselves, they have more abundance and they have more positive things coming into them, including money. Okay? I can give an example that in Alaska, in a class, this lady, she was looking for a job for a year and a half. She put out for her resume, and she phoned people and left messages and everything. She never got anything back. And then when we were in the class, she had a phone call, and she looked at it, and she said, "Oh, may I please answer this?" And I said, "What's the urgency?" She said, "This is the first call I've gotten from any of the resumes that I got. This is a company." And I said, "Of course, that's all right, because I don't have people answer phones." Well, it's a miracle, yeah. And she got a job. So you can say, well, was it because she was in Chao Qigong in the class, etc. Who knows? But she hasn't been getting any feedback or calls or anything. And until she was that day in my class, okay, for that weekend.
Well, some people would say, well, it's good luck. Or in a sense, it's like she was at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, so to speak. Well, and I always say, well, how do you get to the right place? How do you get there at the right time? And how do you do the right thing even if you get to the right place? And essentially, at least from my point of view, it boils down to being in flow. Being in the flow of qi, being in the flow of things, as it were, the Tao. And how one who is really one with the Tao, who is in the flow of things, isn't struggling against the flow. Because that's essentially what most people tend to do. Struggling against the flow of things because they think that they should be going this way, whereas the flow of things is maybe going that way. And so fighting against the flow is always going to be exhausting. It's like fighting against the whole universe.
Now, going with the flow is a great expression. Sometimes I resist using terms like that. What I say is that you are like the heart is the mind in Chinese medicine, not the brain. And there are research now that is pointing out that electrical impulses are happening in the heart before the brain. And it's confusing and really stumping some of the researchers who has been in the research of brain and heart and all that. And so the Chinese says everything begins with the heart. Your thought is part of the heart, and your action is initiated from the heart. And so therefore, if your heart is generally supposed to be good, God created us as good, except we learn other things, you know? And so if you listen to your heart and you listen to your intuition, and that's what Qigong is teaching people to do, is that an impulse, then listen to it. And oftentimes when we change that intuitive impulse to an intellectual decision, how often do you find, oh, I should have acted on that impulse? Okay?
A couple of times in my life.
Many people has confirmed that. I should have acted on my impulse. So that we're not listening to the instrument, the greatest instrument that was produced on earth. And God created this. Now, remember, you can use other than God, but greatest instrument. And then we go and create other instruments that we listen to. And is that greater than the instrument that God gave to the world? Our thinking has been a little bit warped to think that we can create as great an instrument as God has created us. And so maybe we talk about humility, and this is where I think we bring humility to its extreme, so that we don't listen to ourselves. We have to listen to that black box and say, yes, indeed, you're feeling this, you know. And then we say, oh, okay, I'm feeling this. It's almost ridiculous.
We started looking at the definition of what does it mean to be in the flow. And you mentioned that you don't usually use this terminology, which is actually, I think, the most intelligent terminology to use, because if we recognize that everything in our world is made of energy, and I think anybody who graduated from high school would agree with that if they studied, then we can actually perceive everything as an energetic experience, as a certain energetic field that is in constant ebb and flow. If we relate to everything in our lives, and especially to the flow of things in terms of the process of unfoldment of our lives, as a flow, then this is the flow we are talking about in terms of being in it or perhaps struggling against it. If we're struggling against the flow of our own lives and everything that is made of in our lives made of energy, then we're basically going against the flow of qi. So we are learning the essence of qigong, how to perceive the flow of qi and be in that flow. And of course, the more we are in the flow, the more we experience the sense of wellness and well-being. And on the contrary, if we struggle against the flow, pushing it where we think it should be going, we experience struggle and have a hard time surviving.
Well, you know, Lama, the flow can be perceived in any way, and unless you have the teachings of what chi is, um, you take an assessment. Most people don't really know what energy means. They say it's energy. Was it electricity energy? You know, people, they're brought up in a certain way, and that is their flow. And so what we're saying that there are some, parameters.
It's like if we look at the Old Testament. I recently got acquainted with the fable from the Old Testament about Adam and Eve. And the guys were living in paradise. They were living in harmony with the flow of things, with the world, and with each other, with themselves, with powers that be. That was the paradisical life. And then they got into the habit of eating off of the tree of knowledge, right? Which gave them the presumably intelligent somehow knowledge of good and evil. We know what happened. As soon as they started polarizing things into good and bad, they could no longer live in harmony with themselves because they started judging themselves. They started judging each other, so they no longer lived in harmony with each other, with the world that they lived in, so they got kicked out of the paradise. They no longer felt one with the universe. That is the way to cause our own suffering and struggle in life, is by dividing things into good and bad, including the flow. But if we recognize that the flow of the universe is universal, meaning that there is one flow, there is no good part of it and bad part of it, then we can actually learn how to recognize how to be in the flow, and the goodness and badness simply comes as a result of our assessment whether or not we are benefiting from being in that flow. And what benefits one person may not benefit another person, and vice versa. What benefited you yesterday may not be the same as what would benefit you tomorrow.
Yeah, I appreciate that aspect, Lama. Thing is, let's go right back to the thing. I'm familiar with the Bible. You know, I was brought up as Christian as well as Buddhism. And the thing is, the key was Eve took the forbidden fruit. So she was going with her flow.
Well, she actually was somehow seduced by supposedly some kind of serpent, which of course is a metaphor.
But then, of course, then she went with her flow. You understand?
Well,
And the serpent was going with his flow. And so therefore there is good and bad in the universe. That's what the yin and yang, circle means. And so therefore she went with the flow. So I'm just pointing out that when you say with the flow, and there are some parameters that I say you can do anything as long as you don't hurt yourself and you don't hurt others.
It was an opportunity to face the challenge. It was an opportunity to experience what I call the spiritual ordeal. Is the person going to fall into, and that's why they call it the fall, they fall into the disgrace of dividing things into good and bad. And since then, the humankind has been basically challenged, I don't know when since then, since time immemorial, we can say, humankind has been challenged to look at this experience as a spiritual challenge. And those who have overcome the challenge and stopped dividing things into good and bad actually developed the ability to be more in the flow than those who consider that there are good things and bad things. And the less we divide things and polarize the world, the less compartmentalization we experience within ourselves. The less compartmentalized we are, the less energy blockages we create, therefore allowing the flow to flow freely through our organism as well as through the rest of the world.
I agree with you about going with the flow, but if you have criteria to work from, to going with the flow, so it's for the good of yourself and for others, then I feel that going with the flow. But if people don't have any criteria, as I said, that the killer thinks, yeah, I'm going the flow because I'm suffering with this, and I feel I have a right, and I'm poor, and I have a right to take bread from the store. I've dealt with criminals. I've dealt with all these people and kids who have ended up in jail, okay? And they don't know any better because nobody has given them criteria. The parents were too afraid to give them criteria of what is, right or wrong in society. Okay, there are some criteria to which life, if you have more than one person, fine, you go with the flow if you're living by yourself in the woods and there's nothing, no animals for you to kill, and nothing that you can do, and and then we can carry it to extreme. What about cutting down the bush, and vegetarians eating vegetables? Is that not a life rather than an animal? So there's lots of questions to a lot of things. And so, if you know the research, that plants also talk and cry and everything too. I've seen the research, and I've seen the plants respond to a knife cutting their leaves, or a plant being stroked by the hand, and it reflects in the electrical impulse.
Exactly.
And so I say yes, go with the flow, but not without criteria of understanding what may be destructive, okay, as well as what it could be good. And the only thing I'm saying is destructive is if you hurt yourself and you hurt other people. So that's leaving it pretty open. Okay. So I base myself on practicality for today.
I would like to look at, if you don't mind, the practical steps that our viewers would be able to take to start thriving more in their lives, to experience greater abundance, and also to contribute not only to their own individual abundance, but to the abundance of the community and humankind in general.
Well, let's talk about Qigong and its possibilities, okay, in abundance. So I am grateful for God to give me this skill with the Qi that I told you we can deal with. And those are physical things. But we can also turn depression around. And through the proper aspect of going with the flow, okay? But I give criteria to my clients as to how you go with the flow. For example, someone having a trauma, many traumas in their lives, and you see this as a negative background, and you cannot erase your past however you want to. The past is your past, and if it's negative, you can either interpret it as positive or negative. All right?
You're saying if it is negative, you can either interpret it as positive or negative. So what makes you think that it's a negative in the first place?
Well, I've used it. People interpret that way. I didn't say I interpret it. Okay?
So
But the people are suffering of great deals of illness and depression and schizophrenia and positive and negative expressions and all that.
anxieties, perhaps?
Yeah. And so the thing is, you cannot also, being a human being, we also hear you must forgive and forget. I'm sorry, being a human being, you cannot forgive and forget to the very depth that you need to, energetically. So my concept is, and this is what I use, this is my concept that I deal with that, and it turns people around just within one session. And it's that you take a premise exactly of what all your positive things that you have today, the abundance that you have today, all the positive things that you have. And you must do this before you go into the next step. And otherwise, the next step doesn't work. Okay, so I tell them to write it down. It's taking an inventory on all the pluses, all the abundance that you have in relationship to your looks, to your inheritance, like good looks or whatever features that you inherited, not only in the wealth, and some people have wealth, some people don't. And then also what you've gathered around yourself, what characteristics you've developed, and what personality you've developed, and what skills you have developed, and etc. What your accomplishment has been, and the good people that you've surrounded yourself with. This is your positive self that you have developed in spite of all that has happened. In spite of, my father was bad, my mother didn't care, and I don't get along with my sisters, and I've been hopping from job to job, and etc., etc. But there are still many good qualities, even if your life seems to be a mess, if you are grateful, and you're grateful for the abundance that you have. So then, taking the good qualities that you have, then we go back to the traumatic thing. I said, what did you develop as part of this good quality? Because you had to deal with that trauma that you were forced to deal with. And so then they said, oh, well, I learned how to be compassionate. That's pretty good because you faced that. And so, okay, some may have many more, but just using one. Well, I developed my compassion just because my father was so awful with me, etc., and beat me, etc. And said, okay, well, then look at that as one thing that's good. And look back into the thing and say, I didn't need it. I don't want that as my past, but it is my past. And I appreciate the good thing that came out. So, okay, thank you, Father, for beating me. And then if it's possible, I have them also relate to that person. But generally, they don't have time, and so just the fact that they recognize the good things that came from them, from experience, and then go through the job, go through, the mother, and etc. And what did you? And I've turned people around immediately. Or death. Death is the other thing. So the death is also not appreciating the abundance that you had with a particular person. What we grieve so much, and is that death cuts short what we want more of. And so that we're not appreciating the abundance. And it's wonderful that people are celebrating the death of the individual, all the good things that they have. Even children who are 5 years old and died from, a brain tumor, etc. A lot of my clients are now celebrating, no matter what age, just celebrating what that person was on earth and what that person gave to you. That's appreciating the abundance and not counting on what we didn't have. And this is why death is so bad, because they don't see that death is only a transition from everybody is celebrating the person's life now instead of having funerals and mourning their death, etc. And so there was one lady one gentleman who 40 years his daughter had died. And when I asked him at the Congress, in fact, I was talking about death and traumas, and I said, what is the sad part of you? Would you mind sharing? And he started to cry. And his wife was in the audience, and he started to cry. And he said, well, the death of my daughter. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. You're still grieving a lot for her. And I said, well, when did she die? And he said, 40 years ago. Now that's extreme. And, even the wife was looking, like rolling her eyes, because I guess for 40 years she's been withstanding that. And so we talked about this aspect. And I said, do you know that you're holding your daughter back? She's moved into another life. And that she needs all your love, and you leading a good life here will help her live that life fully. You've been holding her back for 40 years. Because we came from somewhere. So we go to somewhere else. When they understood that life is a continuum, okay, and it's timeless. So with Qigong and dealing with energetic, it's timeless. There's no past, present, or future. It is one time. It's one time. And so therefore, when the person moves on to another level of energetics, we don't know what that is, or when we die, we don't know where we'll be. But however, we are on another mission, just as we are on a mission on Earth. Okay? And so therefore, they move into another level. And so therefore, they're always connected with the past and the present and the future. So therefore, if the person here grieves so much as this gentleman had grieved for 40 years, that he still cries at the mention of his daughter, at the thought of it. That is highly extreme, my dear, okay? And so, therefore, he resolved that. I mean, he thought about that, and next morning, they came down and says, we have to leave, unfortunately. But yesterday's workshop, which was just an hour, and he said that threw a whole new light, and that we have an abundance here on earth and still connected with my daughter, which is wherever she is. And I'm going to let her go in that I'm going to be happy, because they want you to be happy. The people that pass don't want you to be sad and non-functional and all that, right? They want you to be happy and totally highly functional. Then it'll make them happy. So his wife couldn't thank me enough. He says, oh my God, 40 years I've had this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And they left, and they're still doing good. They're friends of some good friends of mine from Stanford University. I mean, they're not dumb people at all. They're very brilliant people. And so anyway, this is then goes back to counting your abundance of what you have, not what you don't have. Okay, and so that's another area of definition of abundance. So
We are not focusing our attention on those things that we don't appreciate. Rather, we focus our attention on things that we do appreciate, that we do energetically resonate with. And when we resonate with something and we go in the direction of that, the energetic process is what we refer to as the flow. We are in the flow when we are going in the direction where the energy flows naturally. And if we are struggling against that flow, or we are fighting against it, that creates the sense of being not in the flow. For example, being stressed, being depressed, being anxious, being physically ill, or creating struggling and suffering for other people. Now, that's something that our viewers and listeners would probably love to learn a little bit more about. And of course, we have diverse perspectives on that each and every master in our summit offers something unique and different, and I have to kind of try to blend it all into a more or less cohesive event. But each master is presenting a program, a post-conference program, dedicated to exploring the unique approach, where, of course, I don't start teasing out of them, well, how does it work this way or how does it work that way? We basically just allow the viewers to learn directly from what the master has to offer. What is going to be your post-conference program about, Dr. Chow?
well, I'd like to make a comment on what you just said, Lama, is that this is why I say going with the flow is such a general statement, and that we can offer help if, say, this gentleman, he's going with the flow, the way he's flowing, but yes, it's not the flow that gives him happy life. So therefore, I have come up with a remedy and a process that helped him to immediately turn his thought around. Okay, and I'm only talking about me here. I'm not talking about all the other masters. And in my World Congress on Qigong and TCM, I have 50, 60 masters sometimes at one time. And I respect everybody's approach. I don't say, well, he's good, and judging that he's better and then that one. They're all good in their own way. I'm just talking about my system right now. Okay, so I don't expect it to be compared with any other system. And I don't compare with other masters, except if they say, I heal you. Well, that doesn't go. But if they have this method, they want to roll around and be a snake, and which I do with my clients too. We roll on the floor and everything,
How fun is that?
So therefore, there is a methodology or procedure logically that with Qi that we can help people to move through whatever anxiety that they have. Okay, and I may not be able to help everybody, no one person can help everybody. Although I've been 95% totally, successful, 95% of all my cases, okay? And the other thing is that I think it is up to people because people chi matches differently. And some people would love you, and not that they would hate me, but it's just they would choose you, or they would choose, Chan Yilin, or they would choose Mantak Chia, and that's okay. And some of my students, when I expose them to the other masters, that's what I spend my own time and money to organize the World Qigong, and I bring 40, 50 people, masters or climbing masters, to be exposed to. So my students, they go to these masters too. And I said, I'd love you to go to these other masters to get an experience, but don't try to hide it from me. Just say, I'm going to master too, and I would give you blessings, and I want to know whether you can, how much weight you can lift up with your male organ. This master too who can pull a van with his male organ, right?
Well, pulling the van is one thing. Pushing the van, that's a different story.
Pull it. Well, okay. Well, you can practice whatever. Okay. And so the thing is, and then can stand on eggs, a bit extreme yin and extreme yang. And I have a couple of students who's gone to him. They report back, oh, I can't lift anything. Oh, gee, I can lift a few ounces now. And I can lift half a pound now. And I rejoice with them and I work with the masters and all that. So there's so much to be done in this world that there shouldn't be animosity in competition. It should be friendly competition so that we do our best, And there again, we go to abundance. It's like you do your best, and therefore there's the abundance. And the abundance you can share with the people. I was called into Western Hospital in Toronto, one of the largest hospital there, and they had two patients who had suffered a major stroke from surgery. Okay, surgery had caused these strokes, and they were both paralyzed. They were both comatose. They think that they're comatose, but I say comatose patients they can hear. They know what's going on, except they can't respond. And so indeed, they called me in there, and within a few minutes, I got them out of coma. At least they're cognitive, and they could see they're not in a coma. They're not what we thought that is totally, out of. And so also we got their hands and arms and heads moving upon instruction and with Chao Qigong. And then one of the lady, 92 years old, she had water in her cerebral spinal fluid in the brain because of the operation. Okay, to remove some blood in the brain. And so her legs were drawn up to the chest for 2 months solid. And nothing could move it. Nobody could help it. And so when I went there, did I say, oh, okay, I can do it? No, I just used my chi, and that's what you would say, go with the flow, but I know where my flow is. And so I put my hands on, and I said, all right. And so I visualized, and I sort of used the chi, and within 5 minutes, both her legs were straightened out. And the family is going, oh my God, 2 months, they haven't done anything, haven't been able to move it a little bit at all. It was like rigid. And the concern is that there was arthritis developed because of the rigidity, and that it's a long time, 2 months, that he hasn't moved at all. Okay, so we got it out. Then it sort of went up again, and I said, no, that's tightening. Now drop it, relax it, and my hand would indicate what she should be doing. Well, she dropped it. And we went through that, for a few minutes. And then she finally just stayed really relaxed. And she both like that. And I know she was trying to say something to us. But the medical staff are too busy to take note of these little things. And that's what these little things is what save people's lives. Okay.
In both Oriental medicine as well as nursing, you probably have a lot more understanding of how to communicate with people on such subtle level than, let's say, a majority of Western doctors, because they just don't have this experience or the time to deal with the little minute details of what's going on with each individual patient.
Well, Lama, not everything is learned in the schools. In fact, most of the things are learned outside of school and own personal experience that you are grateful for. And we always all have an abundance like this of knowledge that we can glean from our everyday experience. That's why I say every day you should appreciate as an abundance and look at the things that you experience as a learning experience. Now, everybody can do what I do if they want to, and if they are intended and committed to be observant and detailing in. Everybody can. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a nurse. I have proven it by some of my students that was just high school graduates. And is that can't spell, can't talk too well. And he's now got a big Qigong, starting from Chow Qigong. And then I advised him to go in for acupuncture, because then that's a license there. And he went in for acupuncture. And now he's in Newfoundland. I'll be seeing him next week when I go. And and two pharmacists gave him a huge building as his clinic. Gave him two pharmacists, couple, gave him this building to have a natural medicine clinic using Qigong.
Wonderful.
I mean, isn't that something? I mean, don't you marvel? Two pharmacists giving a building to this young fellow, 20-something years old.
Well, this is an example of abundance. So
Exactly. This is what all we're talking about is about abundance. If we look at everything that happened as an abundance to us.
well, we definitely will continue working on these definitions.
Yeah.
Perhaps
Okay.
we can continue that in our next interviews for your post-conference program. I would definitely love to have more clarity, both for myself's sake and for the sake of our viewers.
Yeah, and me too.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Chow. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Great. Thank you.